CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with you for another Symphonina Foundation podcast. Hope you're having a great week. We're having a great week. As you mentioned, I was on vacation last week. It's been quite a catch up. I wish vacations lasted longer and there wasn't that catch up thing, but there is. But we're doing really good on podcasts this week. We had John Jetter from the Fort Smith Symphony and Jessica Heidi, concertmaster of the Southern California Philharmonic, yesterday. She'll be posted very soon. And today we've got Michael Casimir, award-winning viola player with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra and educator and all-around good guy. Michael, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, an obvious question. When you're a viola player, how did you get to migrate to the viola? Some people start there. Some people start on violin and say they want to do something different. Now, what was your story?
So when I first started college, I was in like a freshman quartet seminar, and I was a violinist at the time. No shame there. And so we would have our breaks and stuff in between, 2 hours or whatever. And the violist would let me play his viola because I don't know, I loved the way he sounded. And I had never heard a violist of that caliber before, like in front of me, like in the same room as me, I guess. Yeah. And so, yeah, he would just let me mess around on his viola for, like the 10 minutes or whatever. And then one day he kind of just said, you should maybe play for my teacher one day. And I was like, all right, cool. And so that's what I did. And kind of it just rolled from there, and I never looked back. So that's kind of how it happened for me.
When did you pick up the violin first? How old were you?
I started when I was 2 years old.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
My dad's a teacher in the Philadelphia School District. He just retired this past summer.
Congratulations to him.
But I know he's 30 plus years. It's crazy.
Man,
but,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you were destined to do it then, because anything that you're handed it to, you have to stick to. But I guess the question could be, that if you hadn't had that experience with someone impressing you with their viola playing, if it had been a cellist or maybe even a contrabass player, do you think you would have still drifted to the viola, or would it gone a different direction?
Well, I think it's a good question. I find that, so when I was younger, I used to sing in a professional boy choir. And then when I got older, like I still sang in kind of like high school a cappella groups and stuff like that. But my voice part was always in the middle. It was never like the extremities, like soprano or bass or like that. And so I always found joy in the middle, because you get to control the rhythm, you get to control the harmony. There's so much stuff. It's like being the Scottie Pippen of like an ensemble,
exactly.
Right? So I kind of like that role. It's really interesting. So yeah, and even when I was in quartets for chamber music camps when I was in high school, stuff like that, I would always ask to play second violin no matter what. Like right away I just wanted to play second because I saw stuff in the harmony, or I heard stuff in the harmony that I felt like was just as exciting to me as playing the top line.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe I was destined.
No, that's cool. And I guess I have a composer question for you too, then, which comes up for me as I'm writing sometimes, which is sometimes I feel like I want to hand the melody off to the second violin and give the first violin something else to do. And I feel like I'm safe doing that. But what's your thought on that?
Well, I mean, when it comes to violins, I think that's just a matter of formality at that point. First or second is just a number for,
Fair enough.
Score purposes. But I'd say, if you were to go like cello or viola route, I mean, cello is pretty common. So, Brahms will definitely give a melody to a cellist any day of the week. Yeah. And what's cool is that the viola always plays, like there's some cross voicing happening, like always, Brahms' Second Symphony, the big lullaby solo that comes up in the second theme. It's like violas get to play the cello part, which is like my favorite moment, nice. When the cellos get to sing and we're right there holding them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess.
So I'm down.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. That's good. And I guess for every rule, there's exceptions to the rule, which make the rule. But I figured as long as the players are sufficiently talented, I guess you have to know which orchestra you're going to play for or write for. Maybe if you're up high on the E string, intonation issues could be an issue for some. But okay. All right. Well, fair. So you went through school. By the time you get done with high school, you've got 16 years of string playing, and you decide to go to Juilliard. Tell me about
technically. So
yes, technically,
before that, I was at Oberlin for 2 years.
Okay.
And I was like kind of quasi double degree, not fully sure what I wanted to do. But I was studying violin there at the time, and that's where I had switched to viola. And then at that point, after 2 years, I transferred to Juilliard. So just to want to make sure I get my Oberlin
Yeah,
plug
no,
in
that's
there.
cool. What were
Yeah.
you considering doing other than music at that point?
Definitely the sciences. I was leaning towards neuroscience because I really love the idea of brain and brain study because
Uh-huh.
I feel like, that's what we do when we practice. We're like, we have to study our habits. And if you're not aware of how your brain works, you can't really teach yourself or get better. So it's like, I always kind of thought of it that way. But again, practicing, it takes a lot of out of you. And I really didn't feel like doing all the extra book work. So I figured I'll just practice. I'll
Yeah,
let
no,
somebody else figure out all the
okay,
brain stuff.
that's fair. So, was getting into Juilliard a competitive thing? How did that go for you?
I mean, I think it's always competitive because you never know who's going to be there. You don't know how
Sure.
you're going to perform, stuff like that. But I mean, I was always confident and I love playing. I love performing. So I
Yeah.
think for me, I was like, well, I just have to learn the clef.
Hmm.
And to this day, I'm still learning the clef, to be perfectly honest. But, I think adjusting to the viola wasn't as bad as a lot of people have talked about. Because I feel like I'm not like a small person, but I'm not super big. But like, I feel like the size I am for the instrument works out really well. I could just transfer all my violin skills very easily to the viola, and it felt just physically more natural. It felt like I was playing a small violin. Well, no, sorry, not a small violin, but I don't know. It just felt like the violin size that I needed
Uh-huh.
instead of like the normal 14-inch violin body size. So yeah, it kind of just worked. I didn't really have to think about it too much, which I also like that the transfer of skill wasn't a huge hurdle. But for other people, I know it is. It's like there's a lot of people who are like ridiculous violinists who try to switch over and they just, I mean, they sound fine, but it's not the same. Like they just don't have the same relationship to the instrument, and I think that's fine too. So.
Yeah, I guess it's the same. Yeah, well, there are parallels. I think in saxophone, there's some people who are very versatile across all the standard saxes, and then there's others who are specialists at one. And then when they go to the other, these, like you said, they sound great, but someone who's at a higher level would appreciate what the difference is between them. So
For sure,
I
yeah.
think that's relatively easy. So what was it like at Juilliard for you?
I think I started to find people that were more akin to my relationship to classical music, and by that I mean like I didn't, I wasn't homeschooled. I didn't go to an art school like a high school or anything like that.
Right.
None of that type of stuff. I got private lessons, but that was about the extent of like my kind of musical training or whatever when I was younger. I also like the choir and stuff like that, but that's not really violin, associated. I'm sure it helps, but it's not.
Right.
So for me, my background was like go to school, play violin on the side, make some soccer on the side, and that's kind of about it. So when I went to Juilliard, it was like, all right, there's people here who are like, what I would like to call normal, and like just people that you could have a conversation with, people and at my age now, people you could have a beer with, and like,
Yeah.
just kind of that type of thing. I always felt when I was younger, every time I interacted with people who were classically inclined or they also played violin or even the parents of these kids, they were a little weird, to be perfectly honest. They were just weird and uncomfortable, and I didn't feel like I belonged in that world at all for like thousands of reasons, but just on a simple human to human level,
Mhm.
it always felt a little weird to me. But like I said, when I went to Juilliard, I mean, I don't know, like there were lots of I mean, it helps that there's a lot of different disciplines. Like, there's the jazz department, which I had a lot of friends in the jazz department. I roomed with some jazz players, and that was awesome just to kind of talk about music with people from a completely different perspective of like how they even feel harmony, how they interact with their music, like that type of stuff. So being exposed to all these different disciplines and people just kind of, like I said, being more normal, being more comfortable, just being humans and so when I got to Juilliard and found that, I was like, man, I think that actually this is for me. I've always doubted whether classical music was for me growing up, even in the Curtis. It took me until I think I won Principal Viola my second year there that I was like, all right, maybe I'm like I'm like okay at this, like I can do this. But like that's where I was mentally. It's like that's what I needed to prove to myself that like, okay, you're not just like, you know, you're not just here. It's like, no, you actually are good. Like you can do it. You're doing well.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
but yeah, anyway, so Juilliard was cool, very competitive. And the only thing I would say is that I loved my teachers and I loved the friends that I made there. But when it comes to the school, it's kind of, I don't know, not my favorite place to be. New York City is not my favorite place to be either
Okay.
because it's New York City. You know, it's like, I mean, people, if I said that, a lot of people would be like, what do you mean? But,
Of
you
course.
know, it's like the hustle and bustle, the rat race, the like, all
Yeah.
that competitiveness. I think it
As Dave
easily
Frischberg said,
bleeds
the
its
anger.
way.
Yeah, all that too.
Yeah,
That's right.
all that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it
Yeah.
bleeds its way into the school. And I felt that for sure. Like people would be like, "Oh, what are you doing for the summer? What are you doing for the summer?" And like I didn't even know half these camps when I first showed up. And I was like, "Oh man, should I be at Menlo? Should I be at
Oh, yeah.
Ravinia? Should I be at Marlborough? Should I be at all these places?" And I'm not saying those places aren't good; they're great. But it's like you felt like you were doing what you were supposed to be doing if you didn't check these boxes. And I didn't like that that much. And I feel like art doesn't really correctly blossom in that type of environment. Something will come out
Yeah.
for sure, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like true to like what we're supposed to be doing. But you know, that's just me. And then when I went to Curtis, it felt a little bit different. It was a little, and I'm also from Philadelphia, so
Hmm.
like being at home, seeing my family a lot. My
Yeah. There you
friends went
go.
to the recital. Yeah, it's like you would have thought it was like an Eagles game at the recital. Like, you know, it was just like it just
Green
felt
jerseys
really at home,
everywhere.
you
There you
know.
go. All right.
Exactly. Honestly, there were so, but yeah. So it's just it's I think place I think in education for sure. But it's
Yeah.
like for me, I like a more organic approach to development as opposed to like forced upon.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. You've also recorded for soundtracks for Disney for Lion King in 2019 and
Yep.
Space Jam: A New Legacy in 2022. What was that like, and how is it different than performing, let's say, in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra?
Sure. It was awesome. Right away, it was awesome. I'm a kind of person. I mean, I love technology a lot, and I've always loved movies and entertainment and all that type of stuff. So actually being in the studio, with Hans Zimmer, John Favreau, and being able to actually talk to them about, well, the violas need to do this here more or whatever, like that type of stuff was super, super cool. I got to look at all the mics there to kind of see not me, Michael, but like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
microphones and stuff
Microphones, yeah.
like that to to see what they were using in the studio. It's like it's how often do you get to go into Warner Brothers studio to see what they used.
Hmm.
It's like when we were playing, especially for Space Jam, I think we used the same studio that they used for like the old school Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, all that type of stuff. And it's like you get to sit in there and you play some of the licks and they sound just like,
Wow.
when I was watching TV just by myself, like watching like Bugs Bunny do his thing and all that type of stuff. So it was really fun to see how they would say, I guess the sausage is made, and
Yeah.
I was really happy to just kind of be a part of it and then see the before and middle and then finally the after. And yeah, and the royalties aren't bad either, so
There you
it's
go.
all together, it's been great.
There you go.
It's great.
Is there a way to for musicians who want to be doing that to try to set themselves up for success in that area, or is it somewhat luck? How does someone go about doing that role?
So I think first and foremost you got to be in LA. Like that's just the first thing. I was lucky because this stuff was happening like almost during the pandemic, if not during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So at the time, I think they were reaching out to people just who they want to try something different or needed whatever. And so I ended up being on the call for the Lion King, and I got really lucky. Shout out to Stephanie Matthews for sure because she put me on that list, and she's like a big time in LA for that type of stuff like film and
Okay.
more entertainment stuff like pop music stuff like that. But she put my name in, and then luckily I just ended up staying on the roster, so I just got roped into a bunch of other movies too. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it because with the symphony job, it's really hard to leave because they only give you a 48 like when they ask you to come do a movie, they give you 48 hours to respond and you have to say yes or no at that point.
Yeah.
And so with the symphony, you can't be like, hey, I have to go, for 2 weeks, like tomorrow. You can't really do that. So
Exactly.
if you were to do the LA stuff, you have to live in LA, number one. And then also you just kind of have to know somebody, I think. Like you just have to get lucky and then be cool when you're there. Like try your best to network, but not too much, not whatever, all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But like it really is one of those like word of mouth things, more so than I think I've ever experienced with any other industry. Like orchestrally, there's still some anonymity with at least like the screen and stuff like that. Maybe
Yeah.
if there's a screen up for an audition or whatever, but For this, it was literally like, I know that person. Let's hire them, and then like let's bring them back now because we know them now.
That does sound Hollywood, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it does. Well, that's all great, and congratulations on that. And I hope if you want to get more opportunities there, that they find you in a opportunity that you can take, as opposed to something where you have to pass on. That'd be great. I know one of the things, as you know, for us at the Symphonina Foundation, well, our main goal is to spread the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world, and I'd say older audiences too, because they could use a dose of spreading that joy also. But I really do appreciate the work that you've done mentoring high school students, other students to play viola, maybe to other instruments too. And I guess that's a bit of your own giving back. And how did you get, I think I know already from talking, but what was your motivation and how did you get yourself into the opportunity to be able to mentor other students and take on orchestral director roles and things like that?
So when it comes to teaching, I had the privilege of kind of shadowing my dad and my stepmom in the Philadelphia School District since the age of, I want to say, 3. I was in school, sometimes probably for babysitting
You were
purposes.
shadowing, you didn't even know you were shadowing.
Yeah, shadowing, but like,
yeah.
No, but I understand. Yeah. But yeah, and I really went to school with them for years and years. And then I started teaching my own students when I was 15 while I was still in high school. And I used to make a little pocket change. I remember buying my first iPhone with my teaching money. And I was like, oh man, this is it for me. Like, this is great. So yeah, so like once I started then, it's I've always loved teaching and I've always respected teachers so much because like my parents are teachers, so they made teaching like a superhero power to me, and I know a lot of people in the industry for sure, they just use teaching as a way to make some pocket change on the side. They really don't care. Sorry to say that to like the people, but it's true. It's really sad, and I love teaching because I like to describe it as like you're playing like chess with somebody, or maybe like mental chess in a way, because you have to find a way to kind of take all the years and schooling and all the stuff that you've learned and distilled it into like maybe a sentence. Because like this past summer, I was teaching kids who didn't speak English really, so I had to like either find a different way to show them what I wanted from them, and I couldn't necessarily use English, which is tough.
Yeah.
So it's like that challenge of just getting from point A to point B, and how do you do that? I love it. Like I really, really, truly love it. But yeah, so anyway, I think, teaching has kind of always been my thing. And then I got introduced to Heidi Castleman and Peter Slowick. And they really are like true pedagogues when it comes to like the science of teaching. I loved how Heidi, my former teacher at Juilliard, and Peter Slowick was my first viola teacher at Oberlin, how they would talk about teaching and how they would say stuff like put your viola down and like feel the music from your big toe and like all this type of stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? But like it opens your mind in a way that like I think most, the way we're taught normally is like very just do what your teacher says. It's very physical. It's that type of thing. And they really made it super cerebral, which I really like. So it kind of helped to tie into like the stuff that I was interested in when I first went to Oberlin, which was like kind of the science of the teaching or the science of the brain and how it kind of functions with music. But yeah, I really, really fell in love with teaching once I met them for sure. I've always loved giving back. It's been a thing since I was little. My dad always put me onto that. I would watch him give lessons for free for hours at the house for free. Yeah. So seeing that, like, it's just the joy of teaching and the joy of like sharing music. It really is.
And the joy of watching your students excel too.
That too, yeah, that too. Yeah. Or just get it. Just the moment where they get whatever little thing it is they thought they couldn't get, they then get it. It's awesome. It's like being at the gym and hitting your PR after weeks, and then you're like, oh my God, like I didn't think I could lift whatever this was, and now I can. That moment is always awesome. So
yeah, you mentioned it's like chess. I guess it's like chess where you want the opponent to win, but it has to be hard enough for them to feel like they accomplished something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, so, okay. So let's ask about your students. Are any of them going on to be professional string players, or what's your, I mean, they have their own goals. They don't have to follow your footsteps, but what about that?
So, yeah, I mean, I teach students that are trying to be violists like professionally. And then I also teach students who just want to learn, like just cause. So I have one student right now who's in Connecticut, and she is graduating. She's a senior right now,
Hmm.
and she's looking to go to master's programs. And actually, we've just been only able to teach via Zoom for
Yeah.
the last year and a half right now, and still the progress has been incredible, honestly. And it's hard to fathom because that wasn't what I've ever been used to, was virtual lessons being a real vehicle for change. We would use virtual lessons as like all right, I'm sick, or the teacher's sick, or
Yeah.
like they're out of town for whatever reason, and it's just a one off. But like to truly be virtual, only interaction that you have to teach is a very different experience. So it's been kind of interesting getting used to that and the challenges of that. But yeah, so she's doing well, and I had a friend. I mean, I have also have friends who like play for me who are not necessarily in school anymore, but they'll play for me and like then go take jobs and stuff like that. So I've
Hmm.
had a few successes with that, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
And then yeah, then I have a few younger students who are just learning the ropes, trying to
Yeah.
get better.
That's all good. That's all good. What does the St. Louis Symphony have in store for you for the rest of this year?
So this is a very exciting year for us. We just renovated the hall after like a 2 year stint. They put, I think,
Nice.
like 90 million or something like
Wow,
that in
there you
there,
go.
some crazy
Okay.
number.
All right.
Yeah, good money. So they put
Absolutely.
about
Yeah.
like that much into the renovations, which is great. I'm really excited to go back and just enjoy the newness and the exciting, all the stuff. The hall's been missing the buzz, right? So it's like it's nice to kind of go back to that. And the ticket sales are through the roof because everybody can't wait to like sit back down. Bridgerton's been happening, so we
Yeah.
just have all this like stuff. So I'm really excited about the season. I'm very lucky to have been asked to play in a chamber group with Augustine Hadalick in October. So we're doing the Mendelssohn Octet and a piece by Kenji Bunt. So I'm super excited to do that in October. And then I was also asked in February to co-create or I guess create would be a chamber music show or a chamber music concert. Sorry, yeah,
It can be a
colloquialisms.
show.
Anyway,
That's all
the
right.
chamber
Yeah.
music. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, it's a show. Whatever,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just a word.
That's all right.
So yeah, chamber music concert with a counterpart of a colleague of mine in the symphony. Her name is Yin. She plays cello, and we're putting together a show it's called the Sheldon, but it's like supposed to be in conjunction with the St. Louis Symphony. So there's like a partnership between this outside resident. So yeah, it's been a good. I mean, look, I don't know what it was, 26, 25, 26. They were like, hey, we want you to do a few things. So I'm happy to take the call and play.
That's wonderful. Well, keep us posted on when you're performing, and we'll be happy to put some posts up on our Facebook page for you and do a little advertising in the St. Louis area to get the word out and help you. Michael, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I think Instagram is always good. Facebook still.
Yeah, old school.
I also have a website, michaelcasimir.com, and you can go there. There's a form to fill out, I think they call it like a submission form or whatever. But I take lesson requests or a few arrangements like kind of floating around the internet that people have liked before. So if you're into that type of thing, please reach out for that. Essentially any and everything you can kind of ask me through that portal. Yeah. And I think I'm also on YouTube and all the other types of things, but yeah, I would say the most consistent ones are Instagram, Facebook, and my website.
That sounds great. Michael, we're going to listen to some more of your great playing on the way out here. We greatly appreciate you spending some time with us today. And if there's anything we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help to you, just let us know.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.